What's up, Raptors fans? Welcome to the Warrant Report. It's time to talk about Raptors trade rumors, and it's been a while since we've received one. Now, NBA Central has been reporting the two teams most persistent about acquiring Jakob Poeltl are the Toronto Raptors and the Golden State Warriors. So for today's video, I'm going to be discussing whether or not the Raptors should make an offer to the San Antonio Spurs to acquire Jakob Poeltl, how he'd fit with the Toronto Raptors, and ultimately give you my verdict of whether or not I think the Raptors should make the trade or not. So if you're ready to watch this video, guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. Now, as you guys know, I do like to give out shoutouts on my channel, and the shoutout for today's video goes out to LFax. So LFax, thank you so much for supporting this channel. To your likes and comments, it is very much appreciated. Now let's break this article down because the source that was reporting this was Spurs.com, and this is a Spurs writer. So I do want to say, guys, I used to fall for these rumors all the time, but I want to read this article quickly for you guys. It says the player that the Spurs get the most inquiries about is Jakob Poeltl. San Antonio's asking price for Poeltl continues to be a pair of first-round picks with limited protection. Now, that's a lot to be giving up for a role player, but let's continue here. According to a pair of sources, the two teams most persistent about acquiring Poeltl are the Toronto Raptors and the Golden State Warriors. The talks with the Raptors date back to last season's trade deadline, but Toronto remains hesitant to offer anything more than a package highlighted by a single first-round draft pick with moderate protection. Now, this is why I think this source isn't legitimate, because not only is this writer a Spurs writer, but also the way he talks about what the Spurs would want. Now, I think what makes this really hard to believe is not only does he say according to a pair of sources, like just name your sources, or at least name it a little bit better, make it a little bit more believable, but he continues to talk about what the Spurs would possibly want from the Warriors, and this is the part that absolutely got me thinking this is not even believable at this point, because he goes on to state that I'm also hearing that the Spurs aren't high on Jonathan Kuminga either, which means a deal with the Warriors will likely get only done if Golden State is willing to part with sufficient draft capitals. Like, come on. With all due respect, man, like, at least try to make this article a little bit believable. You're telling me a Spurs team that scouts so well isn't going to take Jonathan Kuminga, who's got very high potential, for a good role player and expiring contract like Jakob Poeltl? Like, come on, man. This just dismisses all credit to the Spurs writer. Like, you got to make it at least a little bit more legitimate. But obviously, it's always fun to talk about trade rumors, and let's talk about it. Now, let's talk about Jakob Poeltl because his contract is expiring. He's making a reasonable $9.3 million, which isn't bad. But the reason I believe, again, I'm not saying the Raptors would not want to acquire Jakob Poeltl, nor do I think that they shouldn't. But the thing with this is, the Raptors had the opportunity to sign Jakob Poeltl when he was a free agent in 2020-2021. Now, this was actually a player I had really hoped the Raptors pursued because obviously we saw what happened. You know, the Raptors clearly needed a big man, and unfortunately, I think they decided to go with Aaron Baines that offseason. I believe it was that offseason. Correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't go for Jakob Poeltl, and the season would have looked completely different had we had Jakob Poeltl instead of Aaron Baines. And yes, you can make that argument. We wouldn't have gotten Scotty Barnes if not for Aaron Baines. But look, man, like the Raptors had the opportunity to sign Jakob Poeltl. Now, I do want to highlight quickly his statistics because he's actually a player I think who fits in really well with the Raptors. He moves his feet well. He's 7'1", and he's also a good rebounder as well as a good rim protector, which is something the Raptors need. Now, a few things I wanted to highlight here. The issue with acquiring a center is the Raptors get a lot of what they want in a center in Jakob Poeltl minus the scoring. I know he's averaging 12.9 points, which is still really good, but he doesn't stretch the floor. He can't shoot the three, and the biggest concern for me more than anything, especially with acquiring any center, not just Jakob Poeltl, is free throw shooting. Now, he's never shot better than 59% from the free throw line. Now, this becomes an issue because when you're playing centers, let's pretend we're playing the 76ers in a playoff series, and all of a sudden you're forced to play Jakob Poeltl because he's your starting center or whatever the case may be. The issue becomes you can't play him in late game situations because teams are essentially going to be fouling him on purpose because they know that he can't hit his free throws, and all of a sudden that becomes a big issue down the stretch in late game situations. So that's a big issue if you are to acquire Jakob Poeltl because obviously he would be a great defensive player. Like I said, he actually fits in with the Raptors really well. We've seen what he's done with the Raptors in his first couple seasons. He moves his feet well. He fits in with what the Raptors do defensively, but that's the big issue for me. And the second issue with acquiring someone like a Jakob Poeltl is this man right here. Now, Christian Koloko, I believe, again, I've always stated this, big men normally take a longer time to develop in the NBA comparative to, let's say, a shooting guard or a point guard. Christian Koloko, I still believe, is at least 3 years away, including this season. So 2 more seasons, including this one, from being a legitimate starting center. He's someone who's got obviously a lot of potential. The only question is, if you acquire Jakob Poeltl, does that essentially push aside his development? You're going to be limiting Christian Koloko's minutes, his touches, and also, again, it's going to hurt him because he won't be playing as much in the NBA, or at least not with this Raptors starters. But should the Raptors consider this? Maybe sign Jakob Poeltl to a 2 or 3 year contract until Christian Koloko is ready to take over that starting center role. Because as good as Christian Koloko has looked, he still is a rookie who's going to make a lot of mistakes, and it's not really a center you can consistently rely on every single game in and game out. So those are the only concerns I have. Again, I'm not saying I would be opposed to having Jakob Poeltl on the Toronto Raptors. I think he'd be a really nice fit, but you have to question whether or not Masai Ujiri and management would actually make that move if it meant hindering the development of someone like a Christian Koloko. So overall, I think Jakob Poeltl makes a lot of sense, again, for the right price. I wouldn't want to give up even a first-round pick, not because I don't think Jakob Poeltl is worth it. It's an expiring contract. That's the big deal for me. Again, you can essentially go after him in free agency. It's not that big of a deal. The Raptors aren't looking to contend this season. And look, don't get me wrong. If the Raptors do find a way to acquire Jakob Poeltl, I think he absolutely makes the Raptors defense that much better. He's going to be inserted in the starting lineup. He plays his role well. He's actually a decent passer for a big man too. Again, I saw some flashes of potential with him in passing, and he's averaging, I think, 3 assists for a big man is really impressive. But the issue with the Toronto Raptors, not even just Jakob Poeltl, when they look to acquire a center, whenever they're ready, and if they're actually looking to do that, is they need a good defensive big man. They also need one who's able to move his feet well, who's mobile, but also one who can stretch the floor and hit his shots as well. So, I mean, highlighting some of those attributes in a center is essentially talking about an all-star center. So again, those are some of the issues. It's not really easy to acquire those kind of centers in today's NBA. There are very limited centers in the NBA that can do all of that. So we'll wait and see what happens. Jakob Poeltl obviously is a good name we're going to continue to hear, especially as we approach the December 15th date. Now, the reason I say December 15th is because those are going to be the players that were signed this offseason can be treated after December 15th. So again, I'm not saying the Raptors will make a move as soon as December 15th. We are definitely going to start hearing a lot more rumors as we approach closer and closer to the trade deadline. But I do want to hear your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on the Raptors and Jakob Poeltl? Would you consider a trade for Jakob Poeltl? Would you want him on the Toronto Raptors? Do you think it hinders the growth of someone like a Christian Koloko? What happens with him? And what would you be willing to give up for Jakob Poeltl? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, I do have a trivia question for you today. And that trivia question is, the first round pick the Raptors used to draft Jakob Poeltl originally belonged to which team? Is it A, the Pistons? Is it B, Knicks? Is it C, Pacers? Or is it D, Magic? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.